Hello, I'm Andrewsaurus. Welcome to Valorant for Dinosaurs, Episode 4. The goal of this video is to build your mastery of basic shooting and moving, and to enjoy the feeling of steady improvement. By the end of it, you'll be ready for your first game of Deathmatch. I'll give you a quick guided tour of the Valorant user interface, then we'll go into the range, where we can start the journey to mastery. From the main menu of Valorant, we have a few submenus. Hitting play at this point is perfectly fine and safe and will put you into the lobby. The thing to avoid is hitting start at the bottom down here, which would start you in a game of unrated Valorant. Don't do this. This is the menu where you choose what game mode you want to play, and you can make a party with your friends. Let's go back to the main screen. Premier is a special mode where you can form long-term teams and compete in leagues. This is for much later on in your journey. Back to the main screen. The career lets you see your match history and some statistics about how you're doing. The Battle Pass and the store are the main way Riot makes money from Valorant. They are about getting cool customized artwork that you can use in the game. You can ignore them for the moment. The collection shows you all the customizable items you have in the game. You can customize the appearance of your player card, your level, and the guns you use. There are also sprays. You can spray pictures on the wall during a game. It serves no gameplay purpose, but can be fun to do. The agent screen is where you can unlock the agents that you play in the game. You start with Brimstone, Jet, Phoenix, Sage, and Sova unlocked, and all the other agents locked. We will talk more about agents and their special abilities in Episode 6, Team Deathmatch. On the right side of the screen is the social panel. Here you can add friends, see which friends are online, and form parties with your friends to play together. On the bottom left is the chat box. Here you can send and receive text messages from your friends, teammates, and even enemy players during the game. And finally, on the main screen here, you can see some information on how to unlock agents using experience points, XP, and information showing the kinds of things you can do that will get you experience points. Right now, we're going to go into a practice area called the range. To do that, hit the play button, then the practice button, and the enter range button. It will take a few seconds to load the practice range map. Our first step in making sure you have a satisfying time with Valorant is to make sure you're learning and improving effectively. You'll be playing with and against people more experienced than you, which is good because you'll be able to see examples of their play, but it can also be disheartening because you might not straight away have much impact on your team's success. The range has now finished loading. The game will ask you to select an agent. Since it doesn't matter for our purposes, hit Place Over, though you can change it if you want. Here we see the range. Let's walk through what's on the screen. At the top we see our agent portrait. On the left we see the current settings for the shooting range, and at the bottom, as usual, we see our agent's abilities, our health, and our ammo count. In front of us is a scoreboard, and below us is a panel showing buttons that we can shoot to start doing the skills test, and a thing called aim sensitivity. First, let's set your mouse up so you can shoot as accurately as possible. In Valorant it's important if you move your mouse a certain distance, no matter what speed you move it, it always turns you the same amount. You want the mouse movement to be predictable. However, there's a setting in Windows that is on by default and moves the mouse more if you move it faster. So we need to turn that off. Use Alt-Tab to go back to your Windows desktop and go into your mouse settings. Find Mouse Settings, choose Additional Mouse Settings, go to Pointer Options and turn off Enhance Pointer Precision. Okay, now let's go back into Valorant. We want to give ourselves the best ability to quickly and accurately point at distant enemies, so we're going to adjust the mouse's aim sensitivity in Valorant. Start by positioning the mouse as far left as it will go, and move it as far right as it will go, looking at the screen and seeing how much you turn around. Ideally, you'll move 180 degrees doing a U-turn, but with the default sensitivity of 1.0, you'll likely turn a lot more than that. You can adjust by shooting this square here to reduce the sensitivity by 0.1, and this square to adjust by 0.01. Keep adjusting until moving the mouse from full left to full right moves you one U-turn. The correct sensitivity for you will depend on how much space you have to move your mouse and the settings on the mouse itself. But for most mice, a value of 0.3 is pretty good. As a first warm-up exercise, let's shoot some robots. Shoot the practice square and a whole lot of bots will appear. Hit B to bring up the buy menu and click on the Guardian. Then hit B again to hide the buy menu. The Guardian is a powerful long-range weapon that will kill an enemy in one shot if you hit them in the head, but it will take several shots if you hit the body or legs instead. Line up a robot's head in the center of your sights and left-click. Then flick the mouse over to another robot head, carefully line up and shoot. Our goal is to only shoot when you have the shot perfectly lined up with the head, but otherwise as quick as we can. If you miss a shot, flick to a different robot, take extra care to hit it, and then flick back to the robot you missed, carefully line up and shoot. If you find you are constantly moving past the target as you flick, you might need to adjust your mouse sensitivity to be lower. Keep adjusting until it feels comfortable. Some mice have a small button in front of the scroll wheel that changes the mouse sensitivity as well, so if the sensitivity suddenly changes, you may have accidentally pressed that. If so, keep pressing it until it returns to the sensitivity you prefer. We're building up muscle memory here, so that in future you'll be able to react to an enemy appearing on screen, flick to them, and hit them in the head without consciously thinking about it. But in order to get to that point, we need to do a bit of deliberate practice and carve some grooves in your brain so that this action becomes automatic. Hopefully, this is also satisfying to do as you feel yourself improving. But don't keep going until you get bored. Move on when you want to. Speaking of which, our next exercise is going to be about practicing shooting and avoiding being shot. In Valorant, if you shoot while you're moving, the shots will go wild, so it's usually a good idea to be stationary when you shoot. But being stationary also makes you very easy for enemies to hit, so when an enemy can see you and you're not shooting, you should be moving. Let's take a typical scenario. You are stationary, and an enemy comes around a corner that you're not pointing at. Obviously, there's not much point shooting yet, you're not pointing at them. So, you need to swing your mouse around to point the crosshair at them. If you're stationary when you do that, you're a sitting duck. They may well hit you before you hit them. So, until the very moment that your crosshair is on their head, you should be moving to make it harder for them to hit you. Then, when you've got them lined up, stop and shoot. So that's what we're going to learn. We are going to do an exercise where we always shoot the outermost bots, starting with the leftmost bot, pretending that this is an enemy who has just appeared. We're going to swing to the left, past the bot, while moving to the right. Then stop, micro-adjust your mouse to point exactly at the head, and shoot. To make sure we're fully stopped before we shoot, we're going to turn on a little graph that shows how accurate your shots are. Go to Settings, Video, Stats, scroll down to the bottom, and set Shooting Error to Show Both. Now, if we move back and forth and start shooting, we can see cyan bars whenever we shoot, indicating 2.5 degrees of shooting error. In other words, your shots are going wild, because you're moving. Alright, back to the exercise. To start with, swing past to the left, then move, then micro-adjust. But as you become comfortable with it, swing and move at the same time. The strafing from side to side might inch you closer to the targets, so move backwards from time to time as well. Take as long as you like, and try to only shoot when you have the head perfectly lined up in your sights. Any time you start missing, break it down. Turn, move, adjust, shoot. As you feel more comfortable, speed up the pace, getting used to lining up the heads as quickly as you can. Congratulate yourself on good shots where you didn't have to micro-adjust at all, and when you got a couple of good shots in a row. By congratulate, I mean just allow your thoughts to dwell on how nice it was to nail all those shots. When you start to miss or feel frustrated, slow down. Give yourself extra time, but don't dwell on that frustrated feeling. Practice can be an enjoyable and meditative experience. Well, as meditative as it gets, shooting at the heads of robots. After practicing with the Guardian, that's the rifle you're holding now, you can treat yourself by switching up to the Vandal. Hit B to bring up the buy menu, choose the Vandal, and hit B to put the buy menu away. The Vandal is one of the more powerful weapons in the game, and one you'll possibly use the most. It continuously fires as long as you hold down the left mouse button, but the shots get increasingly inaccurate the longer you hold down fire, pulling upwards and then randomly left and right. You can also see the yellow bar in the shooting error graph getting bigger and bigger. It's better not to shoot more than a few bullets at a time, usually. The benefit of the automatic weapons is if you miss with the first shot, you can adjust while still firing and get the robot with the second or third shot. Of course, it's much better to hit their head with the first shot, which is why we will do most of the practice with the Guardians, not the Vandal. But in a real game, when you're using the Vandal, which will be a lot, you have that option. So far, we've been practicing so that you can get into your first game with a basic idea of what to do, but many players come back to this range before they play any games for the day, and use it to warm up or just improve their shooting skills. I certainly do, it's satisfying. So, how long should you warm up or practice? As a rule of thumb, don't keep going until you're bored or start missing shots. Do it for a few minutes, and stop while you're enjoying it, maybe after a particularly good series of shots. There are some other game modes that are fun to try out, where you can measure how much you're improving over time. Hit the function key F3 and click on Easy, then Done, and shoot the Start button. This will make 30 robots appear one at a time, and you will have about 1.5 seconds to shoot each one before it disappears. Unlike in the tutorial, they don't speed up over time. You can measure your progress by seeing how many you can get each time you come back to the range. Eventually, you'll be able to get almost all 30 pretty easily, and you can move on to medium difficulty, which is actually much harder. Hard difficulty is ridiculously hard. I don't recommend you use easy, medium or hard difficulty during practice, as it will make you rush your shots, and we definitely want to keep that good habit of hitting at least 90% of your shots so that you improve well. But it is fun sometimes to measure how much you're improving. Hit F3 again. Another mode is Eliminate 50, which doesn't make the bots disappear, but times how long it takes for you to shoot 50 bots that appear one at a time. Hit Start, and the bots will appear, but they'll also appear at much wider angles, so you have to swing the mouse around more. This is great for measuring your progress, and as long as you make sure you're hitting the heads 90% of the time, you can do this as well as the practice mode, both standing still and flicking the mouse, and moving while you flick. These big flicks from bot to bot aren't as common as in a real game though, so practice mode is still a bit better. So to summarize, our goal of this practice is to build mastery of basic shooting and moving, and to enjoy the feeling of steady improvement. We do so by practicing flicking and micro-adjusting from one target to another, and then the harder exercise of over-flicking, moving, and micro-adjusting, which will be more effective when facing someone who is shooting back. You are now ready to go into your first deathmatch, which we will talk about in our next video. Episode 5, your first game of deathmatch.